You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and we have with us again today Cregg Lund. I'm very pleased about it. We're going through his book, Silicon Satan. It's a novel. Cregg, how are you?
Good. Thank you.
And this book is, I think, extremely important. We are also featuring Cregg on the homepage of CorsiNation.com. So if you'll scroll down, you'll see Cregg will show you here. Scroll down on the page. Chris will show you here, and you scroll down, you'll see a section devoted to Cregg Lund, and that's where, in fact, if you go into that section, you can see sections from his new novel that's in progress, as well as videos he's put together of illustrating various of the scenes in the books. The videos are really good. I'm very pleased with how they've come out, and they give you a whole new dimension of appreciating how Cregg is visualizing the novel as he's writing it. So I'm very pleased with how this is developing, and I think, Cregg, it may take a little bit of time, but I think you'll be developing a following, and I think it's already started to happen. You know, if you put your an email address on here, if we get that put in here, you can get it to Chris. He'll add it. People can start corresponding with you.
Yeah, the best way is just info@siliconsatan.com.
Okay, we'll add that here. If you want to correspond with Cregg Lund, you can do it at info@siliconsatan.com.
I didn't realize how much time I would. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
no, sorry.
I didn't realize how much time I'd be spending answering these emails. I get a lot of these emails coming through.
Well, that's good. That's how you build a fan base, and of course, you know how to database them and to get a list and do all of that.
Yeah.
Those are your fans, and they'll be, if they read one of your books, they're going to read all of them. So you're building a career here. Silicon Satan, I think, is a really important book. It details Cregg's experience. Cregg was a very accomplished programmer, a technical guy out in Silicon Valley, and had a good career going. Was initiated into the satanic sects that really rule Silicon Valley. They also rule Hollywood. They rule the elite political circles in New York and around the world, in Washington, D.C. And what Cregg's book is doing, his novels and his writing are doing, is bringing to light the really, the demonic nature of a lot of these worlds that are just simply inaccessible. Most people think, how could this be? I mean, the first reaction is, this is too outlandish. This couldn't be happening. But it is happening, right, Cregg?
It is happening. It's interesting because we started, working on this book years ago, and it's very interesting how the rest of the world has finally caught up to what we were talking about all those years ago and finally put out. I was kind of wondering if people would be interested, but the timing is just, I'm amazed at how much has happened in the last 5 years.
Well, especially right now. I mean, you've got the P. Diddy trial going on. We're finding out new revelations about the Epstein tapes and the Epstein materials. And I think virtually everything that we're finding out is exactly what you predicted would be the case.
Yeah, pretty much, unfortunately. I mean, the whole world knows what adrenochrome is now. I've known about it for a long time, and I didn't think anybody would ever know. I didn't think the world would know about it, but it's all over the place.
Well, this kind of
you can see the effects on certain people as well. When they get hooked on it and then they get pulled off of it. Like Justin Bieber, for example, he's going through withdrawals. You can see it. You can see him aging.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hormone that's produced when babies or infants are caused to feel excessive fear, and it's mined out of their systems.
Yeah,
I mean, do they kill them first and then get the adrenochrome? How is it done?
Well, they have it down to a science. It's it's all biology. They know how to raise certain levels of certain hormones in children, especially, and how to harvest the drug they want. You can drink it directly, I guess. Drinking the blood directly. I think a lot of people do that. But I think most of the people you see in Hollywood that are just never aging, they're getting a refined version of it. The rituals is fun, but they need that to keep going as well.
And they get it. Do they kill the children to mine it?
I suppose, yeah. I've never been involved in that process, but yeah, I suppose that they do, yeah, ultimately. I'm not really sure how it works. It's coming out more and more. More and more people are doing a lot of research on the exact science, and there's everything from kids in cages, that have never seen the light. I don't have any proof of that, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, to just trying to synthesize it, but I don't think that's possible.
Well,
Otherwise
the
they would.
nature, the Silicon Valley nature, the whole thing is so dark and demonic that you can almost imagine anything happening. But what you experienced was that if you're going to get to the higher levels in Silicon Valley, to the God levels where you're making huge amounts of money and have all kinds of power, you're only going to do that through joining the satanic rituals, and then there's no escape.
And it's even beyond that. The people that go that level, they want more than just money and power. They think once they get there, they're gonna live forever and be gods. And that's their ultimate goal. Their ultimate goal isn't to just get rich. There's a lot of different ways to do that. Their ultimate goal is to get rich and then use that money to live forever. Outdo God.
They truly do think they become transhuman.
They do. They really do. They really believe this. This is you have to get, like you were just saying, you have to have an imagination to even understand what they do daily. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different world, a whole different species almost.
Yeah, and you managed to escape from it, of course, at great cost. I mean, they just about ruined you, and the psychological damage is probably permanent.
Yeah, being there is what ruined me. Getting out is what saved me. Getting out is what saved me. And talking to some of these people that have been contacting me, I've never really come out and said it, but I really didn't have to go through a lot of the rituals. And the reason why I've never said it is because I don't want people to think that I'm just in denial. But my path was a little bit different, just because I wasn't really trying to get to that point. I was an engineer, and I wanted to build things. I was a really good software engineer. I did a lot of really good systems, really good designs. I was a visionary in technology. So there's a lot of the rituals. I was an observer to a lot of them, but I didn't participate in all that many, which is why I kind of stayed at the engineering level. I never really got into the management. And then when they started trying to push me into that and trying to get me to do these rituals, that's when I started panicking and needed to get out, because there was no other way. Up until that point, I was pretty naive. I thought, okay, this stuff is going on, but it's just a group of weirdos. And then I realized, no, this is their life. This is what they really believe. Not only do they believe it, but they live it. And they've been living it for a long, long time, this group of people. And I'm about to get stuck in it. I got to get out of here. So I did.
Right. I'm sure you felt panicked over the idea that you had to get out.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to focus. There's part of the novel that really starts focusing on Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
and it has some really unusual significance. And so, where in the book does it come up? You begin to discuss it, and then you focus a whole section on Hawaii. Tell me in the novel how it fits together.
Well, I start with a story about an ancient couple, and it's sort of a typical story. I learned about a lot of this when I lived in Hawaii for a couple of years when I was working on the Keck telescope, and then I went back a lot. We were going there back and forth a lot. But I start off with a story. It's a typical story, of a couple, and I kind of tried to explain that in ancient Hawaiian culture there was two completely different classes: the elites and then the commoners. I forget what to call them now. Anyway, and the elite. I mean, okay, so this island is out in the middle of nowhere, and these weren't fishermen and they weren't farmers. There was no pigs or lobsters or quail on the island at that time. That came later, after Cook discovered, and the Europeans brought all that stuff in. So what were they eating? And these guys were, the elites were something called Hawaii time, which basically means laziness. Laid back, sit on the beach, and be fat and lazy. And I don't mean to disrespect the Hawaiian people, but this is part of their culture, as far as I learned. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's hard to deny. I mean, Captain Cook was eaten on the beach at Ave. But anyway, so the Ali'is would use the commoners for slave labor and for food, and they were very successful at. They were very successful cannibalistic society. Most cannibalistic societies. Sorry, but there's a big storm here. I'm getting a lot of static. Are you guys getting it? Can you hear
No,
me
it's
okay?
okay. We're hearing you fine.
Okay. So the Hawaiians are very, very successful cannibalistic society, mostly by necessity. They had to make it work out there because they're out there in the middle of nowhere, alone. Right? And if you look through history, if you do a little bit of study, you'll find that most cannibalistic societies sort of implode. They start going crazy, and part of the problem is that it gets too they don't regulate well enough. And the Hawaiians did a really good job of regulating their cannibalism, their ways and means of cannibalism, their rituals. And I think that there's a couple of reasons why I think the elites are very interested in Hawaii. One is because they like the seclusion, but two, I think they're drawn to all the evil and leftover unclean spirits that are still there. It gives them power. So there was a ritual that I got invited to out there. And I looking back, I understand now why they like having those blood rituals out there. It's because there's a long history of them out there. They have everything spiritually speaking, they have everything they need right there. I mean, it's hard to do that same kind of thing in, say, Flagstaff, Arizona, or even Las Vegas. That there's no history there. There's no depth there to what they're doing. So that's where Hawaii plays. And you look at these Maui fires and all that, and it appears to me that they're cleansing the islands. Or a lot of them, I know like Larry Ellison, the guy you've been seeing talking about the surveillance state. He owns the entire island of Lanai. Actually, he owns the company that owns it. It's like a company called CTS or something like that. And the only thing they don't own are the little spot where all the municipal buildings are. But who gets to own a whole? Everybody wants to own an island, but who gets to own a whole Hawaiian island? Right? And
Right.
you hear about Zuckerberg. Everybody else are building bunkers out there. And it's a perfect spot because most of the bunkers are already built. There's lava tubes everywhere. We did a lot of lava tube exploration when I was there, and a lot of lava tubes are used as temples and places of refuge, and there's a lot of history in those as well. So when you go down in there, you can feel the thickness of the evil that over the years that took place in there. Not everybody can, but a lot of people, such as myself, when you walk in, there's something bad happened here. So and they go ahead. Sorry.
You start writing about you go back in history and part of the novel and reimagine an earlier period of time when before going back I guess hundreds of years, but you have a scene with this woman who has a baby, and
You're talking about the two ancient Hawaiians?
yes,
Yeah.
and the baby gets used in a ritual, and they her name is Hunani, I guess. Is that how you say it? Hunani.
Yes.
And this woman clearly loves her baby, and then they gather in a beach area and they're going to have a ritual, and suddenly the mother, Kali, begins to freeze in fear because she said they've not heard this particular call on the side of the island in a long time. It's the dreaded all hands call. It means the subjects of the house of Hi'oua, including especially young mothers and infants, are to assemble at the temple. And why are they calling us? Kali asks with much trepidation. So why are they calling her?
So a lot of these stories I got from, I used to, when I lived in Hawaii, I would hang out with a lot of the older folks, the older Hawaiians. I mean, they were very old when I was there. They're long gone now, of course. The whole culture, I went back not too long ago. The whole culture is different over there now. It's become a lot different. But anyway, I got all these stories from those people, and that kind of ritual that I'm writing about was pretty common. So, and again, I don't want to disrespect the Hawaiians. This is the stories that were passed to me from their elders. But it was the reason why they have these things called the baby luau. It's a 1 year celebration, and that's when you actually name your baby. And the reason why they will tell you it's because babies had a high death rate, and you didn't want to name your baby until you were sure it's going to survive. And that's true, but the death rate was because these babies were being eaten, not because they were dying of disease or anything like that. I mean, they would, of course, but you didn't want to name your baby. You weren't even allowed to, actually, because it may get chosen. And if the baby's got a name and the village loves it and it gets chosen, you're supposed to be proud of that fact. So you don't name your baby. You take care of it and everything, but you don't really bond with it, until you pass that 1 year when it's out of danger. Of course, it's not always out of danger, but at least it's not going to be in one of the dreaded baby rituals.
So the baby ritual begins, and the baby is ultimately taken, right? And she's taken from her and killed in this blood ritual in which the baby is sacrificed. And they eat the baby, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. They cook the baby and eat the baby.
Mm-hmm. And that's what these elites are doing today. They've taken that ritual and ran with it. That's why it's not anything new. People think this is new. It's not. This has been going on for a long time.
What's the fascination with eating babies?
Well, I think because first of all, it's innocence. It's God's.
It's evil. It's evil. It's God's most precious being.
Right. It's so you're thumbing God. And there's that adrenochrome aspect, even though they probably didn't, well, I'm sure they didn't understand the biology back then. They knew that when you do these things to this creature, you can get these certain effects out of it. And the effects are, narcotics, sort of.
Right.
And they use that to, talk to their demons. And they're just being manipulated by the demonic world. By the unclean spirits, same ones that Jesus was fighting in the cemeteries are still here.
Yes, I mean it's a very tough part of the book to read, because again,
tough to talk about too.
I'm sure it is. Well, you've got some of the white sailors who are here, and they kill them, but they don't eat them; they bury them. Why is that?
That particular story is an interesting story. It was father-son captains. The father had the big ship, and the son had the small companion ship. And this was back in the 1700s, and they were going back and forth to Hawaii from the mainland. And they got separated, and the father's ship went over to Maui, and the son's ship ended up on the coast of the Big Island, on the west coast of the Big Island, where King Kamehameha lived. And there was a big fight. There was a lot of in-wars going on between the islands at that time. And Kamehameha was king of the Big Island. And so he commandeered that boat, and he killed the sailors, but he ritualized them because he wanted that boat and the power that came with it. He kept two of the sailors. I can't remember his names. One of the sailors ended up being a governor later on out there, but he kept two of them to run the ship. And he basically won the arms race, so he took over all the islands just using that one ship. I mean, because they had cannons, so he could just pull into a village and start blasting away, and they would surrender. But they didn't. I actually was in that cave. I found that. Some friends of mine, we went searching for it. We found it. It's pretty interesting. It's very interesting to see it. But someone had put a baby in. There was a baby bones in there. Not too far away is another cave that's just full of bones, full of human bones. And we got caught trying to get into that one.
Well, and also the mother eventually is raped and killed. Her head, they bash in her head. So you got a blood ritual in which King Cam, that's the king, devours a piglet which looks like a human infant instead of the actual human baby. But So in other words, this is, I guess, where some of the piglet roasting occurs. I guess it's very similar to baby roasting.
Yeah. So the story that I heard from these elders was that the missionaries brought in the Kahlua, the piglets to replace the human babies to get them to stop doing that.
Right.
A human piglet looks kind of like a baby. They kind of look kind of similar, pink, cute. So yeah, they got them to do. That's where Kahlua pig comes from. Again, I really like the Hawaiian culture. I like the Hawaiian people, and
Well, and it's a dark aspect of the Hawaiian culture, but again, it is it is an evil that is now carried over into the current Satanism that dominates the the P Diddy class and this whole group of people. That I guess the two common themes to all of this are certainly rampant sex, but a lot of pedophilia and a fascination with death and killing babies and eating babies. And life has no particular meaning to these people. I mean, it's a very
well, their lives do.
their lives do, but everybody else is expendable, and they feel like they have complete license to cause them fear, and then to kill them and eat them. And it's almost like they want to gain their energy by eating them.
Yeah, and something that's always kind of perplexed me is the Hawaiians. Well, first of all, how did they get there? There's all kinds of theories how they got there, but how did they bring these rituals over? Because these rituals didn't originate with the Hawaiians. The Hawaiians adopted them from somewhere else, because they've been, like I said, they've been doing this, since Nimrod's day. So how did they get these rituals? How did they figure this out? Well, I think they were taught it, and so the question is who taught them when?
And do you have an answer for that?
No, I've never been able to. There's a lot of people that do that kind of research, and there's different theories. I'll let them figure that one out. But it is interesting.
You're right. The Hawaiians didn't start using baby pigs in their luau's until after the Europeans introduced swine to the islands in the late 1800s.
Right.
And so the luau's go back thousands of years. So you say the luau's go back to ancient times in Hawaiian history. They were important rituals, but they didn't use pigs. The Christian missionaries did two things when they arrived in the 1800s. They planted thorny mesquite trees all over the island to force the Hawaiians to wear shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And they established maritime laws, which, among other things, outlawed cannibalism. Right. Okay, so the Kahlua pig wasn't a pig. It was really a human baby to start with.
Right.
Okay, so again, that's another just dark aspect of this that is the backdrop of the story. There's a lot of evil always looming in the background of the story.
Right.
You can see the way the characters are acting has a deeper context that is just dark and evil.
So if you knew that all this stuff was taking place on a certain piece of property, would you actually want to buy that property? Would you want to even be anywhere near it? Every time these elites find that, something like this, they gobble it up. They want it. That's why they like Hawaii. Like I said, there's two reasons. One is they like the unclean spirits, and they like the isolation.
Well, and they kind of both go together. It's isolated. It's of course, until recently, it was hard to reach.
Mm-hmm.
Take a lot of time to get there, and it was not easy to reach Hawaii out in the middle of the Pacific. And the distances in the Pacific are twice the distances in the Atlantic. And the Pacific is twice as big as the Atlantic. It's a huge ocean. And people don't realize it who haven't crossed it. Of course, in an airplane, you can do it in a matter of 17 hours from New York. You could be in Alaska. I mean,
from Seattle you can get
Australia.
there.
Or
from
Hawaii.
From Seattle you can get there in 5 hours.
5 hours, yeah. It takes about, I think it was 13 or 14 hours from New York. because it depends, but I think it's a long flight. I've taken it many times. It's a long flight.
It's a long flight. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, the nature of all of this
Mhm.
is intertwined with the sex, which goes, there's constantly kind of casual sex among all the people, but the characters just seem to relate to each other. Right after you do the Hawaiian scene, you've got a scene with Raj and I guess it's Sloane, and they're just basically having sex. But the point is, it's the graphic aspects of it. So he's having sex with someone else, with another woman, and he's thinking about Sloane at the same time, which is his girlfriend. And Raj becomes obsessed with Sloane throughout this. From the time that their children have their very first sexual experience when they're both quite young. So this is, again, the sex theme runs through it as just normal. I mean, it's just every day.
Right. So all the taboos, all the things you're not supposed to do are broken. So you start with, breaking sex taboos, and then you get into, maybe homicide, or, it's just, it's a progression, it's meant to break down all your moral, your, get rid of your moral compass. That's the whole design. And so, that's why, it's easy to start with sex, start doing crazy sex stuff. And it's fun, it feels good, it's conquering, there's a lot of drugs, a lot of sex and drugs. These three guys that were on the train recently with cocaine, that doesn't surprise me at all. I didn't write too much about the cocaine, but cocaine was everywhere. We used a lot of cocaine.
You talking about the Macron and the incident on the train with the cocaine? That
Yeah.
surely looked like cocaine, and the way he snatched it up looked like he was trying to, make sure nobody saw it. Of course, it was in plain sight.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
part
know
of
if it's I don't know if it's cocaine or not. I mean, they look like a spoon, but I can't imagine those guys carrying it in a baggie. But
why not?
none, yeah, why not? Nonetheless, it's it was cocaine. Cocaine was pretty common. It was a lot of these orgies start with ecstasy, Molly, and then to keep the ecstasy going, you do cocaine, and then when you're done, you want to go home, you take Valium, you go to
Okay.
bed.
So I guess Raj is having sex, I think, in this scene with this is right after with Meryl's there, and I guess it's what, Clara is this one, and he
Clara,
said,
the mother.
she, well, the camera, has a camera, puts her camera down and lays him back on his back, Raj, and crawls on top of him. And then the part of it that seemed to me, she said, I'm horny right now, Raj. The quaaludes are finally kicking in.
Oh, you're talking about the scene on top of the barn roof when they're
Yes, the top of the
yeah
roof.
yeah.
Then she pulls a vial of cocaine from her front pocket, takes a small Coke spoon that is hung on a chain around her neck, and digs a few snorts of Coke for them. When Stephanie holds the spoon to the nose, it makes her breast look even smaller, and he's comparing her breast to Sloane's breast. I mean, the whole thing is you just get lost in this, and it's not, it's not written to be pornographic. It's written to be, it's like the drugs and the whole experience, the evil, all mixed together in this bizarre combination and formulation, which has a world in which there's just no good at all. I mean, it's all just power, enjoyment, bizarre.
That's kind of why I had to throw in when I was writing the book. I was like, well, where do I begin? Where does this story begin? And I kept going further and further back because it really did start, with the horse ranch. Everything was. If I go back, if things had gone different at the horse ranch, then I never would have got that far. So I had to start there, and then I had to bring in the outlaw bikers because that was a big influence. And it kind of just shows the pattern that is really easy to fall into. It's not like I was trying to make it happen. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of guys, like a lot of men and women like me that were going through this, and a lot of them bailed early, before they, when for an orgy will scare a lot of people away. Just one orgy, and that's, they're gone. You get through your first orgy. It's kind of weird talking like this, but you get your first orgy and you kind of feel, better about yourself, and then you move to the second one, and then you do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing.
Well, you get
And
desensitized.
yeah, so what made it easy for me is because all this kind of was started, real early in my life, real early in the California at a horse ranch in the 60s and 70s. There was drugs and a lot of girls around, a lot of women around, a lot of, it was actually fun. The horse days and the Harley days were fun. Silicon Valley was fun, but at the same time, there was just this constant, I don't know, hook, this evil
Well,
thing
you're right.
going on.
You right here. This on page 285. Say, growing up on a ranch meant learning how to pound a nail in straight before learning how to ride a bicycle. Good but
Pretty
hard
much, yeah.
work was easy to come by for Raj, and life in a small California coastal college town had potential for a bright future. Raj kept looking forward. Horses and Harleys were behind him. And he landed your first good job, and then he moved. You were mending fences, etc. And you're getting into this new setting in Silicon Valley, and realizing that it's a different world, and that you're putting behind the ranch, but the ranch environment and all the casual sex and all the, the easiness of the life. I mean, California is a beautiful place. It's very warm and comfortable. It's certainly not like living in New Jersey or Wisconsin or Minnesota. It's an easy life. But you had carpentry skills. You learned how to work on a ranch. You were around horses, so you knew that life very well. And the Tennessee Walkers are beautiful to horses, and probably one of the more elegant horses in terms of, how to ride them. They don't bounce up and down as much. They're very gentlemanly horses. So, the switch from that life into Silicon Valley had to be jarring, but the commonalities between the two, especially the sex, the easy life, the kind of going with it that happens. One thing leads to another. Pretty soon, I mean, it's like Raj seemed to have sex with all the women on the ranch, and that never quit. But none of the relationships were ever developed very deep. They're all very superficial in many ways, except for maybe the relationship with Sloan, which had a very kind of almost like a pathological, psychological addiction to one another.
Yeah, it was twisted. Somebody should have intervened. Some adult should have intervened real early, and split them up, set them straight. But
yeah, well,
instead they were encouraged, actually. And also the transition from horses to Silicon Valley. Remember, Silicon Valley back then was a bunch of good old boy engineers. So the transition wasn't those type of engineers. If you think way back, the Heathkit kind of guys, with slide rule in their pocket. They weren't sophisticated at all. They wore short sleeves and bow ties. And it was when the business people came in and took over when everything changed.
Yeah, that's it. It became the power group that took over.
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's like, okay, so we're reading about Jeffrey Epstein, and now more is coming out about Epstein. Clear that he was really intelligence operative, and he was bringing all these people into a compromising situation with sex with underage minors and videoed, and they were then used for blackmail, powerful people. And I'm sure P. Diddy was somewhat of the same thing, but it created a whole culture.
And Jimmy Savile over in the UK, and I forget there was another guy, same thing in Australia. I can't remember that guy's name. The guy that did all the Save the Children ads and turned out to be a sex trafficker,
pedophile,
yeah,
and children's porn and all the rest of it. I mean, this fascination with children is it's bizarre, but it is one of the common themes. That and then the drugs, and the use of drugs, and the absolutely no value of God at all. I mean, Satan is real. It's a real entity to these people, and in a conscious kind of presence. I mean, they almost think that they can, build a structure somehow or other, invade heaven and kill God. Is one of the great. I mean, and that's serious. I mean, that's just not nonsense. They build a Tower of Babel, and eventually we'll reach heaven and we'll invade heaven and we'll kill God.
They believe it too.
They
Not only
believe it.
Not only do they believe it, but they're working on it.
Yeah, they're working on it.
Yeah.
They're still working on it, right?
Yeah.
And then, the result of all this is that, so you see background with drugs, and you see Zelensky, who is, known to do a lot of cocaine, and then these people cause wars. They cause horrible destruction. They cause economic disarray. They destroy the middle class, and the godless nature of the whole thing is dark. I mean, the whole thing is just dark.
It's dark to us.
To them, is it exciting? What is it? What draws it? Is it just a sense of?
It's to them. It's escape. It's an escape plan. They got to get off this prison planet. They have to break. They have to get the right guy back in the throne room. Their guy Hasatan. They don't call him Satan. They don't call him Lucifer. They call him Hasatan.
Why do they do that?
I don't know. I think it's a Hebrew. It's like something like Hamashiach, Hasatan. I don't know.
Satan.
Yeah, it's like HA apostrophe.
Yeah, you do that. That's in the book. You do that. I see that. It took me a while to kind of catch on to that. But
I think it's their way. I think it's their way of just sort of distancing themselves or separating themselves from the Satanists and the Luciferians. And I mean, even though they use a lot of that magic, they really despise people like Aleister Crowley because he made it look bad as far as they're concerned. We joke around about these guys, but we're talking about the most powerful, rich people on the planet, and a lot of them you don't even know who they are. You've never even heard of them. The people you hear about are usually puppets, or they are trying to be heroes. They're either being used or they're trying to infiltrate. I tend to put Trump kind of in that infiltrate because he's surrounded by these people, and I know he knows who they are. I know he knows about it. I don't think he's one of them. He could be. I mean, they are clever, but I get the feeling that him and a couple others they're really making an effort to infiltrate, but they're not gonna succeed. I mean, I hate to say it, but they're not going to. There's too much for them to get up against.
No, they're not going to succeed. I mean, it's not. It's in the end, God always wins. I mean, they're just so deep into this. So the first book, really, I think, it's subtitled "Software Engineers' Narrow Escape from the Luciferians' Elite Satanic Control over Silicon Valley," and that could easily be written over Hollywood or over Washington or any of the capitals of the world where these power circles are, and the globalists, and the novel takes you through. It's really a novel of awakening, in that Raj, through it all, begins to see not so much the evil, both how banal it is. I mean, how vacuous it really is. Because it's just repeat sex, repeat drugs, repeat rituals, blood rituals. I mean, it's just a entrapment in evil that languishes about in all this evil and doesn't really escape it. It mires in it. And so the first book ends with the escape, with you getting out of all this and the difficulties of getting out of it, how, alone, isolated, without any money, without any power, without any connections, abandoned, and have to figure out a way to survive and to pull yourself back together and get together again. Life that was really destroyed.
Not to mention the the extremely low self-esteem you walk out with after all that.
Right. So suddenly you were powerful, successful, you had everything you wanted, and then the next day your credit cards don't work. You have nothing. No money, no place to go, no friends. You're just abandoned and not in particularly good shape.
No.
Because you've gone through all this sex and drugs and rock and roll, and you're now, withdrawing from all that, and it's a horror show to survive it all. It's a miracle you did survive. Now, what's the second book going to do? How are you going to go? How are you going to follow this with the second novel?
Well, the second book, believe it or not, I want to go deeper into some of. I know the first one. Some people complain that it was too graphic, but I held back on quite a bit. I would kind of like to go deeper with what they really are doing on their side. Like when I talk to you, I realize that when I'm talking to people like you think that they know that they're evil. I'm having a hard time explaining, but I want to try to explain how they don't think of themselves as the evil ones. They think of themselves as the smart ones who are going to save humanity, or their version of it. And we're the dumb ones. We're the bad ones. We're the ones that they got to get rid of. So I'd like to try to get into that a little bit more. I also want to maybe save a couple of the characters, even though it wasn't part of the original story. But I got a couple different ways I can go with it. I've got a lot of material. I just have to organize it now.
Well, it's going to be fascinating to see what you do with it, because the first book gets the relationships in the first book, and many of the characters Raj and Sloan go all the way through the book, and there's other characters that come in and out of the book and are still, but it's a cast of characters, that are all kind of lost in the same world and are dependent on each other, but yet don't have any real deep relationships to each other. I mean, the relationships are all based on the drugs and the sex, and the feeling of somehow superiority and power. It's a very seductive world.
Yeah, it would be real interesting to rewrite this story from the Lee Nelson's perspective, because from his story is success in Silicon Valley. He didn't escape. He liked it. He stayed with it. He succeeded. He's thriving.
Until it comes to an end.
Right. Until it comes to an end. And that could be a very interesting end.
Yeah, I mean, it could be if he tries to escape, or if he just dies still immersed in it. He can
maybe have him. Maybe the last scene is him in a cryogenics.
Yeah, right.
Coffin.
Well, they do want to extend life, and they do think they can live forever, and so they are seriously pursuing this type of perpetual life extension, and they think that somehow they've graduated into a class where they are now worthy of, or self-appointed into, or have achieved the status of. It's hard to say, put it in words, but they're entitled.
Yeah,
they suddenly become entitled. And
they use their own success as proof. They like to say, well, yeah, if our God was the bad God, why are we so successful? Why are we doing so well when you're not?
Right. And that's always been the seduction of Satan from the beginning. God can't make this place work. You're going to die. I can make this place work.
Right. Yeah.
God doesn't want you to have that tree of knowledge, because if you ate that tree of knowledge, you know how bad God screwed up and didn't succeed. Well, I'm here to fix it. I'm here to make it perfect. All you have to do is follow what I tell you to do.
That's pretty much sums up what they believe.
Yeah, it's the Garden of Eden story all over again, in a modern technological state where they've got all kinds of tools of technological wonder to achieve their goals. They can think about instantaneous communications across the planet. They can think about intercontinental interstellar travel. They can think about all kinds of things which are unimaginable for previous generations. The computers, merging human beings with computers to produce a, transhuman intelligence. All these things which they then contemplate and become kind of tantalizing to them. They're so near to success to achieving them, they think, that they can become gods themselves and are entitled to become gods themselves. I mean, it's a fascinating study in psychology, and
Yeah.
this is certainly not. These are not things that Freud ever kind of imagined. There's a world that is created today, and it does revert back to pagan orgies and pagan gods and all the rest of it. But it's in a modern world with the technological advances we have, it adds a new dimension to it. And these people do feel truly capable of doing things which in previous generations would have made them look like gods.
Mm-hmm.
You show up in the 1500s with a cell phone, able to use it and communicate, you're going to be considered to be a god.
Yeah, show up with a big lighter.
Yeah, show up with a big lighter, right? So it's the same thing. And so we have achieved a lot as a species, but the fundamental nature of the human condition has not changed at all. And we all are mortal. We're all going to die. We all have to suffer through life and learn and grow, and either you do or you don't, but it's not measured in terms of material success. Here, everything's measured in terms of material success. And it's just startling to me, and it hit me over and over again in reading your work, that these people really do envision and see and experience Satan as real. So it's not conjuring mysteries or, this is something they experience daily. They see it,
Mm-hmm.
and they live it.
Well, one thing that I've learned going through this exercise with you, I mean, I was scared for a long time. I hid for a long. Like I said, you can't really hide from them. You just have to stay off the radar. So I kept a really low profile for a long time, which is kind of hard to do because I want to do things. I want to build stuff. I wanted to, build the next killer app, that kind of thing. But anyway, one thing I learned is that there really is truth in the power of Jesus Christ, because if I had not gone that direction, if I had not confessed and gone through all those rituals, those counter rituals, then they would have. I wouldn't be able to do this. I'm proof that they can't touch people like me who confess and turn their lives over to Jesus Christ. They can't get to me anymore, and I'm quite certain of that, just because I'm protected now. Before, I kind of thought I was kind of a Christian, but not really. I mean, I believed something, but that's not very powerful. You have to really believe hard.
We hadn't gotten to the depths of it. It was superficial.
Yeah.
As I read it, most of the things you believe were superficial.
I was a Christmas Christian.
Yeah.
Christmas
Easter Christian. You show up at Christmas and Easter and go to church.
Right.
Yeah, but the depths of what it meant, or the experiencing of it, you hadn't done. Yeah, and you had to go through this darkness to get there, which is so interesting.
The recent Where's Wally Part 2, he goes through an exorcism, and I kind of went through that. That's why I put that out there, is because that's kind of started me on my road to recovery, was running into these guys, and they dragged me in there one day when I was playing volleyball, and they called me up and wanted me to come in, and they did an exorcism. I mean, they didn't call it an exorcism; they called it demon casting, but it worked.
It did. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up. Okay. Thanks for joining us again, and we're going to do more of this. We're going to do more of it. I want people to read the book and communicate. You can do info at siliconsatan.com and communicate directly with Cregg. Read the book, ask him questions about it. It's I say it's a good idea to have a copy of the Bible by you when you read the book. But it's the whole point here is that we as long as this remains hidden in the darkness, we can't defeat it.
Right.
The light of day shining on it, we have an opportunity to expose people to what this evil is all about. So conscious decisions can be made
Mhm.
not to go there. And we begin to see why moral rules are put into place. Because once these barriers are broken and you cross over into the dark side, this is what it begins to look like.
Mhm.
And so therefore it's a warning, and it's well written. Your writing has improved dramatically. I mean, we began working together almost 6 or 7 years ago.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
it's taken time, and it's not been an easy decision on your part. You've had many starts and stops, but
Yeah.
it's now happening, and we'll continue to do this, and we'll continue to talk about current developments and things that we see in the world, real politics. We've now got a Catholic Church that is struggling as to whether it's going to continue with the LGBT and its agenda. We got a Pope Leo the 13th, who saw Satan coming into the Catholic Church, and now Leo the 14th. Now we got to see whether he's a continuation of the same or where we're going from here. But, again, I think the church realizes, like the Democratic Party does, that it may have gone so deeply over to the dark side, there's no coming back. And they become suicidal.
Well, you can always get back. You can always come
But
back.
you have to decide to come back. You have to seek redemption. You have to make a decision.
You have to confess. You have to. The only way I could get through it was to sit down and to start confessing it.
Yeah. Well, Craig, I commend you for going on this journey and sharing what you have, and I want to continue these broadcasts so we illuminate different parts of the book.
Okay.
And encourage people to take a serious read of it. And thank you for joining us. And this is Dr. Jerome Corsi, CorsiNation.com, and ending a program like this, I like to remind everybody that in the end, God always wins, and God will win here too. So thank you for joining us at CorsiNation.com with Cregg Lund and Silicon Satan. We'll be back again with more shows every weekday. CorsiNation.com. God bless.